Okay. Now this is the beginning of the celebration of John Leslie Harkness' life, and people are signing in and giving us their names and addresses. John's friends. Many of John's friends from local and all of his cousins from a lot of his Harkness cousins from Texas and from New Jersey, and their kids. Yeah, we have a shot of the kitchen. And the preparation.
That's where it wasn't as much, and then I'm back to traveling.
Preparation, because we're having a buffet dinner right after the services.
2 weeks, you know.
You'll make your little show,
Yeah, I got off doing that, and I'm getting back on that again. I opened up a little store, so I've been doing that. So mainly that. But
Here, let's get a closer shot of some of the food. Actually, this preparation. There's many friends who contributed to it, and there's Emily and Jane and Scott and Willie and Ann again.
He just deserted me and his family.
These are recent pictures of John and the baby. And those are pictures of John and the baby. The celebration of the life of John Leslie Harkness is about to begin. And when people get seated, we all sit. And the end is the Reverend Willie Cobb and John Hansky, who was a principal in one of the schools when when John and the girls were in school. And one of John's friends will be talking. Then later, different people will be talking about what they remember about John.
My daughter was the same age,
We're about to begin.
We will. Let's get started, and because I know time is important to you, we do have 3 chairs right here, so you can go around and come in if you don't want to squeeze, but with an indent. So tell them to bring any chairs this way, Ann. I'm not going to make a long talk, because if I do, I will cry, and I cry privately sometimes. But, you know, my purpose in having this today, I have 2 reasons, people. First of all, John died so quickly that I didn't have time. I can't talk about it.
Deep breath.
Okay, 2 reasons. I want to celebrate John's life, and I want to record this for his daughter, who is now age 2. I want her to remember what we remember about her father. So, rather than making this a sad occasion, I would like for it to be, you know, John was a fun-loving person. And so we want to say goodbye to him in a fun-loving way. And that's the reason after we finish, we will have supper, because I tell people you can't celebrate John's life if you don't have food, because John loved food. Anyway, I have asked 3 people who knew John over a period of a long time, different groups, to talk to us today about John. And then after we finish, I would like for you to stand up, those of you who care to, and give your name and tell where you knew John, and maybe tell us please tell us what you remember about John. I'm talking about people from the serious and the sublime to the ridiculous, because John fit all of those. I mean, he could go from one extreme to the other. So the funny stories, because his daughter will be watching this when she gets older, and this is the only way she will really know John. So, as you know, we had his service in Atlanta, but it happened so quickly. I was numb. But I will tell you this. We did have, John died very suddenly in his sleep. The last conversation I had was 2 days before, and he had put his daughter on the phone. I mean, she could speak well. Unfortunately, I don't hear well, so there's a little gap there. But anyway, she was telling me about her Halloween costume, and John told me about a house and 9 acres of land that he was going to buy in the mountains an hour and a half away from his business, which was thriving. And he was going to buy this house, and he said, "Mom, this is the place I've always dreamed of having. It's in the mountains." And somebody who was retired had built it and fixed it up, so he wasn't going to have to do any work on it. That was one of the things. But he put his down payment, his earnest money down, and he died right after that. So he died in his sleep thinking about that house. So that's important to us to remember. Also, since he died suddenly, there was a lot of questions about why John died, because we did not know. And after numerous conversations and phone calls with Dr. Smale, who encouraged me to get an autopsy, we did. They're not automatic as people think, and we just got the report back. John's problem was mainly he did have this pulmonary embolus, but the primary reason, according to the report, was bronchial pneumonia. And I tell you this, and he had no signs of it except he was unusually fatigued. I'm telling you this because be careful is all I can say. The walking pneumonia or whatever it is was certainly the blow. I would like to introduce Mr. Hadsky. Mr. Hadsky was a school administrator, and he was the primary reason that Jane and Ann, where are you, Jane and Ann, got through the most difficult years of my life. He was their vice principal in middle school, and he is going to talk about what he cares to talk about John. Okay?
Dr. Harkness told you a little about who I am. I want to say a little bit more. Once there was a fellow here in town, and I went to a little so-called college over at Quino, and we went there and we taught. And the next year, Mrs. Harkness showed up there, and I didn't know her from Adam. And actually, where I taught was some distance away. So during that year, I probably talked to her 3 times all year. But the next year, the gentleman that I was teaching with, he got his schedule changes, so we were not going to be riding together. He lived in Garland too. So I asked Ms. Harkness if we could drive together and swap off, the rides, whatever. And she thought it'd be wonderful because she had been driving by herself. And I'm just telling this for Ann and Jane now. But sometime during this period, Dr. Harkness asked me, he said, "Do you know anything about wills?" Well, I had spent a little time studying about the Civil War and so forth, so I knew a little bit about wills of the period of 1830s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And for the benefit of you ladies, very few ladies had wills back in those days. It was a male situation, and the males were controlling everything. So I told her that yes, and I told her what I knew about it. I said usually what they did is when a man made his will out, he would get one of his brothers to sign, or some male relative. And then he would try to get his wife's brother or some male relative to look after her benefit when he passed away. Well, about 3 or 4 months later, we were riding along one day, and Dr. Harkness said, "I made out my will. And I've got my brother in West Virginia is one of them, and a person here in Garland, which I'm not going to say who it was, doesn't make any difference, but I'm sure she's changed the wheel 5 times since then. And you." I thought, my Lord, you know, all I could think of was maybe that if she were to get in a car wreck or something, then maybe she would want me to try to see if her kids were educated, because I was in the education business. And I accepted. But so sometimes when I was trying to be helpful to those kids, I was sort of living up to what I said I would do the year before. Incidentally, after that year, I came back to Garland, and she stayed at Plano and whatever. But during that time, I got to know John Leslie Harkness. And I'd like to just play on that business with Leslie just a little bit, because that was Dr. Harkness' daddy's name. And I've heard that in those mountains in West Virginia, that this fella sort of went by the name of Honest John Leslie, or good old John Leslie. So in other words, when she was naming her child, she was named after somebody that she had a great deal of respect for, her own father. And I'm gonna leave the part here about all the relatives and all that sort of thing, but I want to tell you something that's been on my mind for about a month. I was getting ready to go to church, and had the radio on, and some preacher, he was preaching on the radio. And as I got ready to go, he made one statement that stuck with me. And he said that farmers know God better than any preacher. And I had to go. I don't know yet how he played that, but I thought about how he played it. The farmer knows about nature's God. They know about the planting and how things grow and the harvest. This is in farm crops. It's for cattle, sheep, goats, any type of livestock. All of the features about their livelihood. And I thought about here, used to, there was a greenhouse right there. And John Harkness, John Leslie Harkness, he learned about crops. He learned about growing flowers at his mother's knee. So he knew that about God. Then, as when we drive together, you know, sometimes Dr. Harkness would talk about her people in West Virginia, and I think they were country folk, really. You know, I mean, I don't think they were I mean, they weren't the Ross Perot's and the H.L. Hunt. They were, you know. But anyway, she had mentioned certain things about maybe they raised some sheep. I talked to Madeline today, and she said they didn't raise sheep, so I don't know. But anyway.
Oh, yes, we did raise sheep.
Not when I was home.
Okay, but what I'm saying, they were people that were timber people. They cut timber, sawmills, that type of thing. But they would have known about the life of people that are dealing outdoors, how timber grows, how you cut it, so forth. And one of the things that happened to John Harkness was his mother sent him up there to West Virginia to stay with some of these people for several months to let him know what kind of life she had when she was young and what kind of people they were. And I think people that deal with that know about God too. Then, well, let me just say this. John was a whole lot like most nutty youngsters, you know. I mean, there was a big craze went through this country about having a water bed. John had to have a water bed, you know. And he, I don't know whether this is the first job he ever had, but I do know it was one of them.
Kentucky Fried Chicken. He came home smelling like Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Well, what I was going to say is, I don't know whether they paid him or not, but they let him eat chicken. I mean, what his mother said, the man had an appetite. I mean, he loved to eat. Now going on, he was sent by his mother to with a group to the Holy Land. And while they were there, he got to walk the places where Jesus walked. So he knew just by osmosis, if nothing else, something about our basis of our beliefs. And then as he goes off to college, he's learning things about geology and rocks and so forth. And he develops certain things in life that he loves to hike. He loves to camp out. And I assure you that if you have ever camped out and looked up at night at the stars, you realize the handiwork of God. So in other words, what I'm trying to tell you is, I really don't, not trying to say that John was a great religious person, but he had walked with God all his life. And I think that's something to be proud of. And Ed, I'm going to let you tell about the members of the family here and so forth.
Ed is a friend of John's from high school. Ed Whitby.
I'm going to choose to sit. I've known John, well, since high school. This house, I spent a lot of time in this house. A lot of us did that grew up and went to school with John. This is almost after high school, in between the times of college and after college, in between semesters and stuff. John and I spent a lot of time out here. And, I mean, this is like a second home to me. John was like a brother to me. He's just the kind of guy that I enjoyed being around. I learned a lot from John. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about John that going to play off of what Bill said. When John was at Sol Ross, it always started saddened me when John went off school because I lost a buddy to hang around with when I was in town working and going to school. And a couple of guys that are here, that they were in the Navy. We had all just kind of separated, but John went off to Sol Ross, and I took a vacation one summer and went out there to see John. And course, you know, when you're at Sol Ross, there's not just a whole lot to do in Alpine, Texas. You either go to school, or you learn to care for animals, or you're geology, or you're hiking and mountain climbing. And when I got out there, John had all the plans set. We were going out to the Woodward Ranch and climb Mount Cathedral. I had never done much backpacking before, but John assured me that I didn't have to have a whole lot of stuff. So we packed up. We went to the grocery store and bought some stuff and packed up the old truck, and we went out there and got on the trail and spent about 2/3 of the day getting up the side of this mountain, and got up to the top and had packed a steak up with us because we knew we weren't going to be over there overnight. So we built us a little fire and cooked this steak, and about the time that steak was done, it came the worst thunderstorm I think I've ever been in. Of course, we didn't pack a tent. We didn't know to pack a tent. We didn't think that would happen up there. So on the way up, John and I had passed a cave, so to speak. It was an indention in the side of a mountain that we had noticed and stopped and looked at, and so went on. And during that course, when we thought about it, after we'd sat there in the rain for about an hour, we said, well, we could make it back down to that cave and probably see if we could get in there. Because it was raining hard enough that we got a little worried and concerned we was just going to float off the mountain. We got back down to that cave, and there was only one way into it. It was a little ledge that you had to kind of walk pretty close to the wall and get into. And we got in there, and it was undercover enough that we could get out, build a fire, and stay out of the rain, stay dry. And that's what we did. We got wood, we built the fire, we kind of cleaned it up. There was stuff here and there, and we didn't pay much attention to it. And as John, I learned a lot about rocks from John, because John would show me different things about rocks. And during the course of the night, it rained more and more, and a waterfall started coming down the front of this cave. It was coming off the mountain, and you know, I never thought much about it. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, we were kind of in and out sleeping. It was still raining. The waterfall was coming. And John just kind of popped up, and he looked at me and he said, man, did you ever stop thinking about how this cave was formed? And I chose to ignore him, because I didn't want to think about that aspect of how much water was coming off of that mountain and how much water it took to form that cave. But as morning came, it cleared off, and the waterfall stopped, and we noticed, you know, however, because where we were, we didn't get to see it. It was dark, and we noticed where we were and everything, and we fixed us breakfast, cleaned up the cave, put everything back the way we had found it, because that's the way John was. In nature, you didn't disturb the way it was. You went back the way, you left it the way you found it. And we left the cave, and as we were leaving, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, we got out to the edge of the little ledge that came out of that cave. And at the edge of that little cave was a deer leg, freshly chewed on, red meat, blood, and everything. And we made that assumption right then that we had invaded a mountain lion's cave that night during a rainstorm, and he'd come home that night. But he didn't come in because of the fire. And I think we spent the next hour getting off top of that mountain about as fast as anybody could. That was like in the summer of '82. And I think I'm ventured to say a year or two after that, John and I took a 13-day vacation in the summer again. And we spent 13 days on the road. And out of the 13 days, we hit 13 states on the eastern seaboard. That was our goal, was to see how many states we could hit. But along the way, the one place that John did want to go while we were there was the mountain in West Virginia. And I will never forget that mountain, because that was that's all John could talk about was the mountain, and where his family, the family mountain is what he called it. And if memory corrects me, somebody owns the bottom, somebody owns the middle, and the Leslie family owns the top. And the top was the only place we could stay. We couldn't stay at the middle or at the bottom. We had to go to the top of the mountain.
That means you have to climb the mountain.
Yeah, we drove up the mountain, and that's the only. At that time, I was driving a Jeep, and that's what we drove, a Jeep,
Yeah.
for 13 days. It was tough. We spent every night in a hammock in the back of that Jeep. We would find parks, and we would find places that we would pull that Jeep up to the back. We would pull up to 2 trees in any park we could find, city park, state park, we didn't care. And we would tie these hammocks to the bumper and to the trees, and then pull the Jeep out till they were taut, and run a line across the top and put our canvas across so we had protection from the bugs and the rain if it rained. Now, John pretty much knew how to do all this stuff, you know, and he taught me a lot about this. But that mountain was the highlight of the trip. I mean, it took us almost a half a day to find it because it'd been a while since he'd been there.
Right.
And relatives, you know, we visited relatives in town, and they would tell him the directions to get there, but their directions and our directions were 2 different things. You know, a left-handed turn, you're not sure what a left-handed turn is. You know, you turn left or, you know, or what. We weren't sure, but we eventually found it. Two of the trails that we went to get to this mountain were false trails. He almost had me drive up a waterfall because he swore up and down that was the trail to the mountain. And when we walked up to it, we walked up the trail and discovered that wasn't the trail that we needed to drive up. But up on top of that mountain, we saw things that I've never seen before. Cabins, there's a log cabin up there that I think a cousin of his
Civil War.
had drug up there, that had taken apart piece by piece and put on that mountain. And we did a little exploring the first day that we were there, and walked out and found a farm somewhere up there, I'm not sure where, that somebody lived at. We don't know who, never saw them. We know they were there somewhere because lights were on, candles were lit in the place, and it was enough that when we walked in, we kind of knocked and the door opened, and we looked in and saw the candles lit, and John made the assumption right then that we'd best not be staying there very long because they were there and they probably didn't want to see us and we didn't want to see them. So we made haste and left pretty quick at that point in time. But on that 13-day trip that John and I took, I still to this day when I take vacations and stuff, I do rock. I hunt for rocks. Rocks are a memory of where you've been and what you do, and you know you can look at a rock and go, well, this is where I was, and think about it. And John taught me that. John always had a way of telling you something about a rock or telling you something about a tree. Just the knowledge that he had about nature and the things like that just always amazed me. And John and I spent a lot of time talking about those things. Just you know, he's going to be really missed by me because he was a very close friend. When he moved to Atlanta, it was a loss for me because I lost a good friend that I did things with. But we stayed in touch a lot, and I'll always regret that I never got to Atlanta to see John as we got old and kids get older. And your commitment to your kids, you have to kind of do the things they do instead of doing the things that you would like to do. But I know that John would he would have enjoyed being a parent and teaching his child and his daughter the things that he knew about nature and the things that he knew about rocks and trees and just everything. His family, they were dear to him. You could tell that by the way that he spent a lot of time at home, and just the way what his sisters meant to him and everything. John was real close to family, and that means a lot. It means a lot to me.
And how many of John's contemporaries, these young men, are of the same class? There's Johnny Rowland.
Kevin Kirk, Kevin Quisenberry,
right.
Pat Arrington.
Right, all of you were in his class. Okay. I remember these boys when they were 13, 15, and so on. And I remember we had the last party we had here for this class was when I found somebody on top of the 3rd floor roof on the outside, and I said, this is dangerous. older. I can't chaperone you on the roof. I recall. So we had a little.
There were several.
That was the age. I remember.
Let's not go into
All right.
the part.
I have asked Willie. I want to tell you, Willie has worked with us and been part of this whole place of the kids growing up for how long, Willie? 20 years? 25 years? Since I was 16. But anyway, Willie by night and day, except when he's working here and a few other places, is indeed a minister, and I value that and respect that greatly. And I have asked Willie to lead us in whatever he cares to briefly, and then we're going to turn it over to you all. Thank you. All right, Willie. Reverend Cobb, excuse me.
I believe I first stand.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I like to say that we thank God. First of all, when we look around and look at each other, we can say that we are blessed people because we are among friends. Amen. And I think that it's a blessing just to be here this afternoon. And I will listen. The gentleman here was talking about John. I knew John. I met him some years ago, and amen, and the Lord let us have conversation, share words together. And I said just my words. I remember John. Amen. I can say that to me, he was a man of great compassion. Amen. He's a man that showed himself friendly. The word of God said if you're going to have friends, show yourself friendly. And this is what John did. He had compassion. He had love. And I know he inherited that from his mother. Because Dr. Harden, to me, had the attribute of Christ. Christ said, I didn't come to destroy man's life, but I come to give life and give it more abundant. And when I think in time and I look at it, and since the time I've been around this place, I have seen Dr. Harden touch many lives. I've seen her, when little like many lives were falling, I've seen her reach out and pick them up and say, live on. And I'm sure that John inherited some of this. This is a family that I'm very close to, and Sister Marilyn, I enjoyed her coming to the church, had a nice time, and this is just like home to me. But in behalf, I refuse to say goodbye to John. Because if we live right and live for the Lord, amen, we gonna join again. Amen. I heard the word of God said the other day, to die is gain, but to live it all for Christ. And just like a gentleman said that John been walking with God most of his life. Most of were taught when we were child, right, growing up. Our foreparents taught us what was right and what was wrong. Our parents taught us about God. Every one of us here were taught when we was a little child, right from wrong, and how to respect God and for who God is. And I heard the word of God said in Ephesians, said to the children, obey your parents in the Lord. You understand? Obey your parents in the Lord. And I know John did that. I know he did that. But people, we have to realize one thing. Whatever God do, nobody can change it. We have to accept that and accept God. And this is a celebration. This is a celebration. I remember a little song. And when Dr. Harden got the news, she came to me. I couldn't say nothing because I couldn't say, I know how you feel. I never lost a child. You understand what I'm saying? I couldn't say that. But I could say what Paul said in Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through the Christ that strengthens me. You can endure. You can go on. You can, Dr. Harden, you can pick it up and go on. Because Jesus said, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. I'll be with you at all times. And I thank God for all of these friends. I thank God because, amen, without a friend, what would this world be like? What would you be like without a friend? Amen. And I certainly thank God for the friendship and for the love that has been expressed here. You didn't just come here just to be coming. Love brought you here. And what could be better than love? the little song that I remember when I was growing up. Love lifted me when nothing else could. And I thank God for that. But John was a man that I feel like loved his fellow man. I didn't go on no trip with him. I go on no cave with him. But I had word with him. And I had word. And the Bible said, keep your mind stayed on the Lord. He keep you in perfect peace. And I know God is real, and I know the word of God is real. And he said, you shall know the truth shall make you free. You can be free. Every one of us can be free. All we got to do is keep our mind on the Lord. And I just thank God today, amen, to be part of this series, amen. And we have to learn to love one another with great compassion. This is the only way it's going to be. God is in control. This whole world, no matter how much riches you have, you yet got to come down and do what the Lord said. Amen. If you're going to have peace, and amen, and you're going to make it, we're going to have to be like Christ. Be Christ-like, Christ-minded. And then when you can do that and have the fruit of the Spirit, then you know you're on the right road. I thank God today. Amen. The Lord has been good to all of us. And I thank God that I don't have a grudge in my heart against nobody. I love everybody. And you know, sometimes people look at it and say, well, they don't love me. That don't matter with me. It ain't what people think about you. It's what you think about people. It ain't how people treat me, but it's how I treat people. It ain't how much people love me, but it's how much I love people that count with God. God is in control, and I thank God. I remember Ann, and I remember Marlo. I looked at him a while ago, and I had to look up at him. You see how quick time passed.
Right now.
He was just a little bitty fella.
Stand up,
And I looked, and I had to look up at him. I remember when Marlo was just a little bitty fella, catching snakes and green snakes. Amen. And I just thank God. But I want you to know I don't have a grudge. I love everybody. Just the only way that I'm going to be able to make it with Christ, that I'm going to have to love and have compassion and show love. You know, we can talk big, but amen, deeds speak louder than words. And I thank God for Dr. Harden. I be here, and she know I be here for love Dr. Harden. I love the family. I love everybody. And I feel free this evening. When I can love, I can be free. So I just thank God, and I know, amen, John is all right tonight. I know he's all right. And for his daughter, I would like to say, this is good. I thank God. I appreciate Dr. Harden doing this. But I'm going to tell you one thing. Amen. John might not have been blessed like we are to be able to raise our children to see them grown. But there's one thing about it. All of the lives that he took and all of the good things that would speak louder than what we can just say. Amen. He took many lives. And when he little girl grow up and hear people talk and see their friends, amen, the work will be done. Your life speak louder than words. So I just thank God, and I'm going to do that. I got the word that John Fraser was the 23rd Psalm, a division of Psalm, and I'm going to quote this in the behalf of the family and the behalf of his daughter. And if this is what he liked, this is what needs to be said. Is that right? And so the 23rd Psalm, it goes as, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He made me to lie down in green pasture. He restored my soul. He lead me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod, thy staff, thou comfort me. They prepare the table before me in the presence of my enemy. They nod in my head with all. Surely in goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I say again, God bless you, God keep you, and I want you to know, from the depth of my heart, I love every person in this place tonight. God bless you.
Thank you, Willie. Now, let's see. I'm not going to have any tears, but let's see.
James.
Dr. H, asked me to say a few words also. I think she forgot, but that's okay. I feel very fortunate. There's some people in the room that probably knew John longer than me. Ron, I think you knew him longer than I have, and Johnny that just stepped out. But John was my best friend. We've been best friends since 1970. So I feel very fortunate that, you know, I perhaps know John better than a lot of other people do. But that doesn't make me fortunate. What makes me fortunate is that, you know, a lot of us go through life having some casual friends and some good friends. But I've had a best friend for close to 30 years. John and I shared the deepest, our deepest secrets, our deepest emotions. John's parents thought I was a bad influence on John.
You were.
My parents thought so. That's on me. And it was talking about this house. You know, I've got a lot of hours logged in this house, a lot of hours logged in that room up there over the garage. Back
We
in
call it the studio.
The studio. John and I lived in the studio back in the mid-70s. Mid-70s, I guess it was. I guess that was after we got booted out of, let me qualify this, Mr. Dr. H's house. Down on the other side of Centerville and Country Club, that little house down there.
It used to be there.
It used to be there.
Not there anymore.
And you know, I can attest to John's love for the outdoors. We spent a lot of quality time fishing, just out and about, camping. We had some fun times out the lake fishing. Lost a few knives, lost a few rod and reels. Of course, that's a private joke. Quiz knows what I'm talking about. But John enjoyed the time out and away from everything. We got close to God quite a few times in many different ways. We grew up together. I think we brought out the best of each other. We also brought out the worst of each other. You know, it's hard for me to stand here and not be selfish and tell you what I'm going to miss. But I am thankful that I've had a friend like John for a long time. And if you ever get a chance to have a best friend like John, take full advantage of it. I just wish we had some more time to spend. But I love John. Ms. Harkness wanted me to tell what I remember about John. I will remember John because he was a big part of my life. And I guess we were a big part of each other's lives. Laura is his second child. When my child was born, he was right there too. He's just as much a parent as my son as I am. I feel. I guess we gave him the title of the Godfather. But, my son was upset that he wasn't able to make it today, but he's still up in Oklahoma where he's going to school. But
Every family needs a man in the house.
He hauled it to school for a project and he got a better grade on it than we did.
have you ever seen it with sunglasses? We've doctored it up a few times.
And I did want to say I remember John was a lot of laughter.
Thank you. That's good to know. We need to remember the laughter. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? Yes, Linda. Linda was I want to tell you all something. Linda was a student of mine, a freshman, when I taught school when John was a year old.
Yes.
All right. What do you remember?
I remember one time you had to go somewhere after school and you needed someone to take care of the children. And I was, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old. And I went in and started feeding the baby. And I don't know if it was Anne. I'm not sure. But I knew that I had to feed the baby. I knew where the bottles were and everything. And so I got the bottles out and started trying to feed her. But no milk came out. I didn't know that you had to take off the inside of the bottle.
You've
the
learned.
nipple. And then make a bottle. And that I just remember, you know, crying and crying and crying as a child.
After food. All right. Anyone else? Yeah, Johnny.
I probably sympathize John's friends as much as anybody in the world remember not knowing John. I spent many a night down here at Centerville before this house was built. Both Dr. Harkness and Ann and Jane, and I was a lot different, I guess, than most of his crowd. I wasn't talented. I couldn't sing. I couldn't play a musical instrument. I wasn't a good athlete. I was a cowboy. And my life kind of evolved around horses, rodeo. John didn't know anything about that, but he didn't care anything about that because John loved me. And the only thing I could give John in return was my love for him. And John died without me knowing it. But the thing that I can say about John Leslie Harkness is that he died my friend. And I was his friend because he just had so much love that everybody here that knows him and remembers him knows. Eddie knows. Kevin knows. Lizzie knows. He was a man among men. And I'll miss him, and I'll remember him forever.
Thank you, John.
Thank y'all for being with us.
I remember Johnny well.
Dr. Bill.
And at that time, this house was the only house in the area. And there was a barn with a horse. And my wife and I had a son also named John. And we came out to visit. And John just took care of our son, who was probably 4, maybe 5, in terms of the horse ride and jumping on the bed and all the things. In the last, I guess, 10 to 12 years, John and I developed a very, very close friendship. And I had a boat. I have a boat. I also have a house down at Cedar Creek Lake. And at that time, I didn't have a boathouse. So it was necessary to pick up the boat and back it out and put the boat in the water. Well, John and Dr. Harkness and I had decided to spend the day at the lake. I had this big truck. I can drive forward. But I could not, for the life of me, back that boat up and put the boat into the water. And John gave me a lesson about you turn this way and then turn that way. I said, John, get about it, you just drive the truck. Let's get in, drive the truck. We finally got the boat in the water. And of all things, rather than for Dr. Harkness want to fish, she carried books. She wanted to read in the book. So John and I were fishing and just having a real big time on the lake. And Dr. Harkness was in the back of the boat reading. And I guess about 2 o'clock, it was hot. All of a sudden, John took off his shirt and jumped into the water. And the water at that point was probably about 200 feet deep. I mean, the water was just absolutely unbelievably blue. I said, John, you could have a cramp. You could do this. Oh, and he just swam around. I said, oh, you're disturbing the fish. So he finally crawled back into the boat. We fished for a little while longer. Dr. Harkness still reading. Then the shirt went off again, back into the water. And that was a fun day. That was a real fun day.
I wonder what I learned from the book. I can't even remember the name of it. Thank you, Dr. Bell. You know, my idea of a vacation is go someplace where there's a mountain and take all the books. That's my trip around the world idea. You all know Madeline travels all over the world in one trip after another, and I travel to the greenhouse. just like to add something. We're going to have dinner, supper, or whatever. Anybody? Who would like to? Ruth.
Most of these reminiscences have been guy things. So I think that it would be a good thing to have when the Harkness family lived right down the street from us, and we were very close because we had many common interests, and the children were close friends because Helen and I were together a lot. And but then Helen moved away, and we were not quite as conveniently close, but the close friendships remained through the years. And when Helen and the girls and John would come out on the boat with us and try to learn to ski, and did learn to ski, but Helen never learned to ski. However, I will say she didn't bring any books.
I didn't try to ski.
But those were wonderful times. But the thing I really remember about John most, and will be eternally grateful for, and I'm sure that every mother in this room will know exactly what my feelings were when I tell you this. My daughter, who is, I think maybe a year younger than John, but very close in age, and they had been, as I said, very close as children, but didn't have too many contacts after that. My daughter had had a date and had looked forward with much pleasure to going to a prom when she was a junior in high school. And on the day before the prom, the young man with whom she was going became very sick and was not able to take her. And here I am with this child who has this dress and has been to the beauty shop and, you know, the whole 9 yards about the prom thing, and no date. And I began to think, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And finally, I called Helen. It just popped into my head. And I said, Helen, this is my problem. Do you think John is he busy? Will he take Penny to the prom? And she says, I don't make John's dates. We'll have to ask him. So I said, well, put him on the phone for heaven's sake. I just have a few hours. So I explained to him, and I said, John, could you please take Penny to the prom tonight? I will do anything you want me to do the whole rest of your life if you will do this. And he said, well, sure, I'd love to take Penny to the prom. So Penny and John went to the prom, and they had a wonderful time, enjoyed every minute of it, and I will never, ever, ever cease to be grateful to him for doing that. And I'm sure that a young boy who was that sensitive, and to know what it would mean to this little girl not to be able to go to the prom, was equally sensitive in all of his contacts, and I think his daughter would have been wonderfully blessed to have been able to know him.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you.
I think I should address the point. All right. My name is Marge Summer. I used to diaper John. When John was a baby, and Helen and I had moved into a new neighborhood, we had boy babies the same age. And Helen was teaching, and she needed someone to care for John. And so, to digress a bit though, the first time I saw John, he and this woman were walking up the street together. He had on a diaper and was carrying his bottle. And he was just walking very confidently. And I thought, that child must be 2.5. How old is that child? He's so big. So when they came up to where I was, I said, and how old is he? And she said, it was either 15 months or 18 months, and he was a big boy for his age. But I did take care of John for about 2 years at the least. And I would like, just for the record, to tell you that as an infant child, he was a joy and a delight. Some children have tantrums. He didn't. Some children are selfish. He wasn't. Some children are at odds with other children, and he wasn't. He had blonde hair that was so blonde it was almost white, and it was curly. And he had big blue eyes, and he was beautiful. he was a very sweet, kind sort of a baby, a child. And I loved him dearly. And I think that what you have expressed in his later years here, I saw very early on that this was the kind of person he would grow to become. We were all very lucky to have known him.
Thank you, Marge. Thank you very much. Marge has been a friend for a long time. A long time. Yes. Kevin. Helen, give her your name.
Kevin Quesson. James alluded to some of our escapades. I knew John.
I remember.
I'm sure you do. I was hoping you forgot most of them. John and I literally grew up together. Known him, gosh, it seems like all my life, as well as Dr. Harkness. John's entire life, we talk a lot nowadays about faith journeys and journeys of faith. I think John's entire life was a faith journey. He, early on, loved to read. He would read philosophy books. I always admired him for that, because I wanted to know that, but I couldn't stand to read that stuff. So, but John could. He studied philosophy. He was almost a cowboy poet before his time, I guess. And we lived together down the street here in the little house, I guess you'd call it, the little house on Country Club. Stayed with him a while in an apartment. We took many trips together, did a lot of things together, did a lot of fishing together. If this is for his daughter, when you get older, we will tell you about the trip to Toledo Bend. But you have to get older. I know John just adored his daughter. I have a daughter that is now 9 that she's all I live for. And I know John was the same way. One thing, this is hard to say about him. One thing about John that I think everyone will agree with, John he never had an ounce of hate in his body. Never. And this was something the Reverend alluded to earlier. I don't think I ever heard him say a bad word about anybody. Whoever he met, he became friends with. So we'll miss him.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. You know, John had said, and I did say this when the reporter interviewed me, that John had read more than I had read. And I'm a reader, and John always was reading more than I was. He kept up with things a lot better than I did. Okay, anything else anyone would like to say? Yes. Bob, Leslie, this is my granddaughter from San Jose. Leslie.
Okay, he's like my uncle, okay? But I remember one time my mom and grandmother Helen had to go to the store once, and so it was just me and him, and Bonnie was sleeping, and my brother, I don't know what he was doing, but okay, it's like a once in a lifetime chance if adult asks if you want to jump on the bed. So, he asked me, and of course I had to say yes. I mean, and so when at the end, the bed was the covers on the ground, the pillows were all over the bed, but it was fun. But then
Bonnie is the other half. Okay. Anyone else? Here's Lucas, of course. He is one of the young men in the family, my grandson. He is their brother. All right, and you've met Milo. Now, anyone else like to add anything? And we will. You want to say something, Lucas? We're training him to be a politician. Well, Lucas, do you have something to add? Well, I want to tell a quick story about John, because I remembered it when I found a picture in his album. that was labeled Blizzard 1993. If you all remember, about 1993, we had all the television news about these people who were lost in the North Carolina mountains. And they were talking about the people who were lost, and they didn't know whether the blizzard, they didn't know whether they were going to find them. And about that time, someone called me, John's wife called me and said, John is lost in the North Carolina mountains. I said, what? She said, well, we got Sue on his cellular phone, and they're caught, and they can't get out, and we don't know what's happened. They're lost, and we haven't had any contact. And I kept hearing it on the television. You know, some reporter really got it. So anyway, and what to do, couldn't find any trace of them. And I think Dr. Bell, Dr. Bell suggested, why don't you call the governor? And I did. And so I didn't even know the name of the governor, but I found the name and I called the governor, and would you believe they put me through to one of his first assistants. And I said, I tried to talk to the local people and couldn't get, they didn't know anything. They were genuinely in danger. The catch is the one time I one-upsmanship on John. When I talked to the governor immediately sent planes in to bring those young men out. And so when they got in and they pulled them out of the snow, the first thing they said was, my God, John Harkness, you call your mother. Call your mother because the governor's going to kill us. And you know something? John got a little upset about that. He said, there I was in front of all these men, and he just told me to go call my mom. That was the only time I ever came out of there with John. But anyway, thank you, and I will, if any of you want to talk. I'd love to talk to you.
All of us
We settled down and we're eating. John always thought everybody should stay for dinner. And so after the celebration of his life, we are having dinner. Let's get a shot of the table.
We also sell a lot of
The best way to get a shot of the table is to get close to the table.
But it's all vintage, yeah.
Starting with
for us,
Bonnie made the deviled eggs. Where's the deviled eggs? Ah, the deviled eggs. Bonnie made the deviled eggs. Your cousin Bonnie.
But mostly,
the fruit bowl. My goodness. The ham. The son. Ah. That's delicious.
Before it was just like you had this austere modern.
And I'm hungry. I haven't eaten yet.
And now it's like everybody's realizing, hey, it goes with antiques, it goes with country, it goes with everything. So we're being able to reach a broader audience. Which I think is good because I think we design things that a lot of people
Beautiful. No calories in all that food.
We still have some modern art in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So we hardly ever did anything new. I don't pursue it. But I like it. Better design through better, better living through design. What's that? I have no idea. I just see it every once in a while. Also, it's better to think you're staring.
Okay, Ann, say something significant.
Hey, Lauren. I'll say something later.
Yeah. Now, that is Sue Watkins, who wrote a beautiful column about John for the Garland paper. You can pass. Dr. Snail. Is it good? What are you having? Coffee or I'm afraid we're going to be
I don't have any idea.
Okay, now we're all set.
The thing I remember most about John was when he came to New Boston and buried his father's ashes. And he came in a pickup truck from Atlanta with a barbecue grill on the back. And the cemetery out there has a beautiful gazebo on the top of the hill. And he grilled chicken breasts and hamburgers. And we brought other things and had a wonderful meal and full of love and fellowship. And then he and Ann put his father's ashes in the ground. And then everybody there went out and picked up a shovel of dirt and closed up the hole. And then we had a flat of St. Augustine grass, and everybody put out a sprig of grass all around the park. And it was such a wonderful, wonderful day. And we felt such love and fellowship. And that's what I remember about John.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And now you didn't tell me your name.
Oh, I'm Lou Dawson. I was a cousin of his father's.
Yeah, your cousin
John.
Bill's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Who you are, and
Andrea Nasher, and I first met all the Harknesses in 1984, and that's when I met John. And I was not fortunate enough to have a lot of time with John, but my moments with him I remember very, very vividly, and I think of him as, when I think of him, I think of his intelligence and his curiosity and this mind that was always wanting to know and exploring, and his kindness and his generosity of spirit. And one of the stories I remember, which illustrate this, I was working with Helen, and I was, in fact, I was going to buy a car by myself, something I'd never done, and I was a little nervous of going to a car dealer person on my own. And John, I was going to buy a truck, and John volunteered, not even knowing me very well, volunteered to come with me to several truck dealerships and help me through that whole passage. And I drove past the Toyota place on my way here tonight, and we would get a car from the dealer, and then he and I would drive around the corner, and then he would help me learn how to parallel park this huge monster and do all kinds of things. And with humor, and nobody in my family would even come help me, and John just was a giving person. And had a few, when I met him, both he and I were in kind of in between times in our lives. I didn't know where I was going to live and what I was going to do and what my work was going to be or anything. And he was very empathetic and sensitive and really compassionate, kind human being. And the reason I wanted to say this on the video is because as many people as I've met in my travels all over, he had a strong impact on me. He was very real.
One more dirty dish. Okay, thank you.
Caring, giving person, and that's so rare. And when I hear that he also, when I met him, had been in a time where he wasn't sure what he was going to do, an in-between time for him. And then to know that he has shaped his life in a way where he created a family and a daughter, a child that he always wanted, and his work was blossoming into in a dream of the home he dreamt of and the land he dreamt of, and it all coming together that he had his life, he had shaped these so important things and was flourishing, and that it was achieving his dreams is also so, it's an inspiration, very inspiring, and so though I didn't know him well or have a lot of time with him, he's in me. I remember his kindness to someone who didn't know very well, and it's very impressive, and it's with me. I think of him with smiles, and I just wanted to say this.
Thank you, Andrea.
It's me, Leslie, and husband. Okay, one time, first of all, if an adult asks you to jump on a bed, it's like a one-in-a-lifetime answer. Chance. You have to, well, you don't have to, but I mean, it's not usual for adults to. So, one time, my mom and grandmother Helen had to go to the store. My sister was taking a nap, and my brother, I don't know what he was doing. But he's all, it's getting kind of boring. You want to go jump on the bed or something? Me? He's all, yeah, of course you. What else do you want to do? Sure, I'd love to jump on the bed. I mean, adults never ask to jump on the bed. So we all jump in and stuff, and the covers were like all on the ground, and the pillows were on the wrong side of the bed. Then my mom and grandmother Helen came home, and they're like, what happened to the bed? We had no answer. We were just sitting there like all out of breath and stuff, and it was pretty strange, and we had no answer. We were just sitting there, and that was like cool, because adults never ask that.
So, and that's Leslie. Now, Bonnie, you have a chance. Leslie will come back to you if you think of anything else you want to say later. But Bonnie, you're on.
Okay, hi Laura. I'm your cousin Bonnie. I just wanted to say that I remember once when your Uncle John was visiting and we were up here, and there used to be this kind of dining room thing, and there used to be this big dresser thing inside of it. And I used to never want to eat in there because I was always so scared, because my Uncle John, your dad, told me that if I opened the dresser, then ghosts would come out and help me and scare me.
Ooh.
And so I used to be so scared to eat in there alone. And then he told me that was just fake, and I was, no, it's not, and I didn't believe him, and it was really funny. Okay. And then...
Now, Lucas, it's your turn, and now you talk. You say hello to Laura.
Hello, Laura. I'm your cousin, the Bon Lucas.
Tell her how old you are now.
I'm 6 now. Raised at the bomb thing. I'm But then I didn't say that.
Okay. Now, Lucas, what did you get for Christmas?
Oh yeah.
Well, show Laura what you got for Christmas.
I get the Want to hear a song?
Oh.
Like for me. Anybody love you? Adventure on the open sea.
Laura, he's talking.
Anybody love you? Point a left top like real high. Anybody love you? You need a patch across your eye. Anybody love you? And the other one song. The monkey sang. One more bing bang. Want to hear a story? You know what? There was Bill and the hippo. Hippo? Okay.
Does he tell stories?
Yes, he tells stories. We were in the reptile wagon, and Spike was a hero. You should have seen it. And then the monkeys ate all the nanners.
Okay, that's it.
And if you want to see
What?
hey, if you
Yeah.
want to see magic,
Yeah.
if you think this can't come out, voila, magic. And
Oh, that's another Santa Claus.
Lucas.
Lucas,
Okay.
now, what do you do with that? Where did you get that drum?
What's it? Hear the sounds? Wait.
Okay, now, what else did you get?
Okay.
That's all right. You can get down if you want to.
Got a robot.
You get down.
I
That's
gotta get back on the chair.
Okay, just stay.
okay. Help him back.
Okay. Hey, the rabbit.
My sensors indicate an intruder is present. Danger, danger, Will Robinson. My sensors, danger, danger, Will Robinson. My sensors indicate an intruder is present.
And this, what's this?
Ooh, he has lights. Oh, wow.
And then, okay. At my mom's house,
Mhm.
we got this pinball table, a ping pong table, and a laminator, and this keyboard that's really cool because you know how to play it because like the thing's light up. We got a ping pong table.
Yeah. And what about all those color things?
Yeah, we got
Can I ask a
some
question?
crayons.
Yeah, just a minute, Lucas. Oh, Lucas, tell us about that friend of yours who flies crazy.
Nor if you make it
Let me get him up close.
loud. And try not to mess it up because it's a TY.
What is that?
Its name is Batty, and it says it's a poem about it. Says, "Bats may make some people jitter. Please don't be scared of this critter. If you're lonely or have nothing to do, this beanie baby would love to hug you."
Oh.
And he does this.
And
No,
Lucas?
he doesn't fly.
No.
He needs to fly.
Lucas, what is your favorite toy that you got this year?
Wait, you need to watch him fly.
Okay.
Sit, you must go.
Okay, what was your favorite toy this year? Lucas.
Okay, Lucas.
Okay, I got.
We see you. We're going to
I
take...
got 8 beanie babies.
Now, Bonnie, have you got anything else to say?
Not really.
Well, tell Laura what grade you're in this year in
Okay,
school.
well, I'm in 5th grade, and I go to Monterey School, and I'm 10 years old, and my birthday is February 9th.
Mm-hmm. And I bet you...
San Jose, California.
Yeah, so do I.
San Jose, yes. Okay, what do you want to say, Lucas?
Uncle John once got,
Look at the camera.
Uncle John, your dad, Laura, you know, he once got me this really cool airplane toy, and I used to always play with it every night.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to put it on pause. All right, Bonnie.
Lucas, stop.
Are we on?
Start at the top.
Okay, we're on? Right now?
Yes, you're on.
Oh, okay.
This is Leslie in, what is it, third grade. This is Leslie in second grade. This is Leslie right now in 5th grade. And that is me in 3rd grade. And that's me in 2nd grade. And that's me right now.
And there's Lucas right now in first grade.
Okay.
First grade.
All right. Now, how about showing her the great grandmother, which is down there at the bottom.
Right here.
Wait till I get it on camera.
Lucas, move. Lucas.
All right, I'll have it on camera.
This is our
Great grandmother.
great grandmother
Ivory.
Jane. And this
That's Anita.
Anita.
Uh-huh.
And this picture is in West Virginia.
Okay, Bonnie. Now, Leslie, let me see. Let's focus for you.
Okay. This is grandmother Helen.
Wait just a second now till I get her.
When she was, I think, like 25 or 30 or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is you when you're a baby. And this is Lucas when he was in kindergarten, and my dog Billy.
Do you still have that dog?
Yeah.
You say Laura.
Okay, but stand over this way. Who's that baby there? That one.
Baby Laura.
This is baby Laura, yourself. Okay?
And so
Okay.
right there.
And so is that.
And you don't stand in front of it. I can't see it. Oh, I can't see that. Now that is, who's the girl? The girl with the pretty curls down there at the
That
bottom.
is me in first grade. That's Bonnie in first grade.
Okay.
This is a picture I drew because it's a froggy and it's a frog, and because I love frogs, they're like my favorite animal. And the round dotted things were supposed to be the ocean, but I never really got to finish it. And there's little fishies, and I use markers. And I'm not done with it yet.
Do you draw? Do you draw very much? Do you
Kind of.
like?
Mostly
like to draw?
frogs because I love frogs.
Yeah. What's your favorite fun thing to do?
Fun thing to do. I like to run and swim a lot.
Oh, great. Okay, let's go to Bonnie. Bonnie, you have a picture?
Well, I did, but I didn't finish it, and it's upstairs.
You haven't finished it? Okay, let's,
What?
okay, Bonnie, what's your favorite thing to do? You draw, don't you?
Yeah, I like to draw. I like to draw. I like to swim. I like to go see movies. I like to play softball.
Oh, yeah, and I like to go to the mall.
Yeah, I like to go shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Okay. That sounds like fun. What do you like to do, Lucas?
Wait for the Batty be on TV because he's a really good teacher.
Yeah.
Okay, we are starting with Becky Show.
All right, that's pretty close.
Fly.
Back up a little.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you, Lucas. Hey, Becky, bye for Becky's commercial.
We hope you can come visit us sometime in Texas or something. So you could go to Disney World or something with Grandmother Helen and all of us, maybe.
Okay.
Bye.
Lucas, you want to say goodbye?
Bye.
Bye,
I
love.
love you.
Oh, that's
Hey,
nice.
where's Patty? Bye, Laura. I hope we get to see you soon. Because you're 2 years old now, and I've only seen you when you were 2 months old. So, hope I can see you soon. Bye, love ya.